couple of more minutes to arrive, to get settled. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the launch of the Ilanot Review Money Issue. I'm Marcella Shulak. I'm managing editor and the nonfiction editor for this issue. Here's Stephanie, great. I'm going to show you right now the cover of our wonderful issue. You're looking at, just a sec, get this, there you go. So you're looking at the cover, oops, let me just get rid of this. You're looking at the cover of our money issue. Okay, and this is called Economy, and it's by Karina Aslanova, a Ukrainian artist. Our back cover is called Storefront, and it's by Orna Tsabari-Tichel, who we found out after we took it. Let me see if I can move us over to the back, and that's called Storefront. We have the table of contents by Tony Ebril, and you'll find lots of other art in this issue. We would like to thank Anthony Moreno for our cover art. And we would also like to thank Yoni Hammer-Kasoy, who has been and continues to be our fabulous help tech advertisement publicity guy. And we'd like to thank Yossi Nechemi for our being our webmaster. The journal was founded by Janice Weitzman and is run by alumni of the Shane D. Rudolph Graduate Program in Creative Writing. And on this issue, Karen Marone is the, Karen, you are doing fiction, microfiction.
Microfiction.
Microfiction, and she's the production editor. Jane Medved and I switch off between poetry and creative nonfiction, and Nadia Jacobson is the fiction editor. This issue was made possible by our amazing guest editors who really shape the conversation that we curate each time. And so in this issue, our guest poetry editor is Allison Powell. She's got a new book out called Boats in the Attic, and it's wonderful. Our creative nonfiction guest editor is Ouellette Sabari, who taught this year at the Shane D. Rudolph Graduate Program in Creative Writing at Bar Ilan and has just completed a novel. She's with us, although not always visible, as she has previous commitments. Now, each issue is themed, and this time we chose money. And it was kind of challenging because we think no other single word, with the exception of love, probably has inspired so many cliches and self-help books as the word money. And the last 3 years have highlighted our experience of money or its lack. Most recently, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is driving up fuel prices for heating, cooking, irrigation, transportation of goods, and has made life miserable far beyond the range of a missile, although, of course, we can't compare. COVID has shuttered our beloved neighborhood businesses, changing the face of our cities, and it's left many of us unemployed. But beyond serving as a means of exchanging goods and necessities, money has a life of its own. Is there anything else we argue about more? That we measure more obsessively? Is there anything else that bestows as much power and control, or renders us powerless and voiceless in its lack? The work inside this issue is going to be addressing some of these questions. Finally, we're grateful for you, dear listener. We're grateful for your presence. We're grateful for these poems, stories, translation, and works of art that are looking for your presence. We thank you for being here with us. We thank you for reading. Now, I'm going to introduce our first reader, and then I'll turn this over to our featured contributors and our editors who will introduce the subsequent readers. So Stephanie, are you indeed with us?
Yeah. Wow. Am I first?
Yes. Let me introduce you.
Oh, wow. Okay. I guess I'm first. And
you're first, and let me say just who you are. Stephanie Burt is professor of English at Harvard, and her most recent collection of poems is We Are Mermaids by Grey Wolf, just came out this past year. And her podcast about role-playing games is Team Up Moves. We chose her poems, Pine Sol Cleaning Spray and Backless Dress, for their social commentary, their fabulous playfulness, which we really enjoyed. So Stephanie, take it away.
Okay, I believe those are the ones you want me to be reading today, right?
Yep. Do you like that
Okay.
little
Just-
hint for you?
Just
Okay.
those two? Just those
Yep.
two. Okay, here you go.
All right.
Pine Sol Cleaning Spray. It's not my fault. But I should say this is if you want to visualize it, when I'm reading, this is a shaped poem that is shaped like a spray bottle, if that helps. Not sure how to communicate that in a reading, but I hope it comes through acoustically. Pine Sol Cleaning Spray. And are there, I should also say I think this is an American brand. Like, can you just like go to a shelf in Haifa or Tel Aviv and just like, or I don't know, Manchester or Auckland and buy some Pine Sol? No? Okay. This is an American brand. It's a very common brand of household spray cleaner. Pine Sol Cleaning Spray. It's not my fault that when I am on my game, I tend to make all scents the same. I take the salt from the souvenir seashell, ash from the corbel streaked with residue or clotted with old smoke. I erase dried ripples and thin dirt tracks along with the burnt traces of pork or brisket, the last smoky offerings for those insatiable iron faces whose 4 maws top your gas stove. Though I am by no means shallow enough to want to keep all things homogeneous, it is, alas, my genius to keep house despite myself. Lo and behold, wheresoever I go, I carry in my side a sacred grove. I pin things to their woodsy frame. I expect you to grade me on my work. Whatever you do, don't let me near your knife and fork. And then another poem. Okay. So this is a poem that is indirectly drawn from a poem called Black Dress by Laura Kosciuszko, who I hope you're all, Marcella, you're a Kosciuszko fan, right? Okay, good. So I taught the poem Black Dress and then brought in this sort of emergency little black dress that I keep hanging in my office for like when you spill coffee on yourself and you need to change fast, and put it up there for my summer school poetry writing students as, here's an example of a poem you could write about an object, along with a whole bunch of other stuff I put on the table. And my students insisted that I should write a poem about one of the objects. So anyway, this happened. Backless Dress, after Laura Kosciuszko. You fit the empty spaces through which among crowds we have asked you to stride or sashay to a T, your mess of finely knotted laces creating a kind of negative pressure, a sailboat whose lee includes the whole of the conference room, ballrooms, dressing rooms, and graces of any deity able to bless people coming together to see what each smooth strap is able to hold up while putting your rivals and ramshackle years through their paces, at once concealing and putting on cat hair scuffed, soft, matte, solid color display wherever you came from, wherever you have done, what smoke or steam rose in your wake, whatever entity will miss you enough to get in anyone's way once we know that you're gone.
Thank you. Yeah. Fab, you can send comments in chat. And Karen, take it away.
Thank you so much. So our next reader is Joseph Celizic. Joseph teaches at Bowling Green State University, and his fiction has appeared in Indiana Review, North American Review, Third Coast, Read a Viter, and Cut Bank, and has been shortlisted in Best American Mystery Stories. So what we really loved about this piece is how before anything else, the language just grabs you. When I first came across this, it took me a couple passes to really make sense of what was going on, but the language works on a level that's beyond cognitive understanding of the events that are happening in the scene. And it really felt different from anything I'd read. And because of the way he uses language, Joseph manages to take an encounter in a gas station and turn it into something that's truly biblical. So Joe, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Karen, and just thank you to everyone for putting this together. I just feel really honored to be here and be part of it all the way from Ohio. This piece was specifically for Ilanot because I was just so enthralled with some previous issues I had read where you guys like really just embrace like liminal space and surprising language. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. This piece is called Off I-75. His breath unleaded, the seats impatient. They used to give these out for free. I remember that, I forge. Someday again, I hope. It's our third burger and fries, our second eye brush, our first donated words. He's as reliable as golden arches, a beacon on my evening stops for gas. He doesn't bother with the cardboard sign, but he stole my boss's voice, and his beard is not so long. His eyes are redwoods, and I dare not count the rings. You know those numbers are telling the truth. He air pokes the backlit prices. Nothing truer than $1. I'm relieved when neither of us laugh. His swallow translucent, his mane ecclesiastical. Meaningless, he says, but he's not boasting. There's no prophecy here, though it's no less hard fought. They're warning us. They were too late, or maybe I was. My landlord's letter came last week. 2nd Jenkins, 314. Your monthly rent will increase 41%. I've already scoped the boxes behind the dumpster. I'm just joking, he says, unsheathed. Maybe one day. I vow to keep an eye out, and he swears on every passing car that I'll be all right. How do you tell someone they mean more than they think? That they're putting themselves on sale? Demand is high, I've been told. I wouldn't sell this second. I gather our trash, mine and his, in one crinkled bang, a huddled ball hot in my hands. It should rot faster. It shouldn't last forever. He snaps his fingers like day 2. Firmament, the heavens. That's how. Just like that, he says. And the words put a price on us that can never be changed.
Thank you so much, Joseph. That sounded great in person too. Okay, next up, we have Carla Dupre. Carla is the recipient of fellowships and awards from Hedgebrook, Baldwin for the Arts, Rhode Island Writers Colony for Writers of Color, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, a Ruby's Artist Grant, and a Maryland Independent Artist Award for her fiction. Excerpts from her work in progress, Where the Spirit Meets the Bone, have been published in the Pierian Literary Journal, Callaloo, and Potomac Review. She's the executive director of City Lit Project, an award-winning literary nonprofit in Baltimore, Maryland. So Carla will be reading an excerpt from her novel, Where the Spirit Meets the Bone, which takes place in a fictional town in Alabama in 1955. And what we loved about this piece is how in a few brief lines of dialogue, we really get to know and love our main character, a 16-year-old girl who's tired of living in poverty and who feels like her mother is resigned to staying there forever. And she knows it's time to leave, but at the same time, we feel her terrible pain in leaving the mother and the family she loves. Carla, take it away.
Thank you for having me. I so appreciate it. 16-year-old Medea planted a basket filled with wet laundry on the ground and lifted Papa Shat's worn overalls from it. She shook them out twice before clamping them with a clothespin on the strung clothesline. This can't be my life, she said to no one. Each time she pulled a piece of clothing to hang it, a lump of misery formed in her throat until she tasted the bile rising like a tide of ill will thrust upon her. You got something to say? Her mother stepped down from the porch and met her between two lines of clothing. You acting as if you smell shit. After you hang them clothes, you may as well head on down to Miss Lindy's. Help her with her laundry. Mama, please, I can't. I'm not trying to wash people's dirty undergarments, scrub their shirts with smelly pits, nor clean their filthy houses. What kind of life is that? She flung a dress back into the basket. Then what you plan to do? What you good at, girl? Get a big old job up north doing the same thing? How? What you equipped for to make you some money so you can live decently outside this house? And what's wrong with doing laundry if it's an honest way to make a living? Her mother placed her hands on slight hips and eyed Medea with an incredulous look. I don't know, but it's got to be better than this. I can help at the grocer's and learn how to use the cash register for Miss Corley. I'm good with figures. I can work alongside Mr. Haywood in his shop. Anything but this. That boy washed and put some crazy thoughts in your head. You ain't thinking straight. That's it, Mama. I am. I can't see myself ending up like Ollie with a kid and some low-down husband to help her, or pining for something that ain't never gonna happen, like Eula and Bebe. What's wrong with wanting more? Child, because it ain't that easy. What is it you don't see? Your father and I have carried you all of your life, making sure you have food and a safe place to be. You see how hard we work. What does that have to do with me? What I want has nothing to do with you or Papa Shat, what you or Papa Shat have or haven't given me. Mama, haven't you just ever wanted for more? More than cooking for other people, cleaning out slop pots and washing dirt floors? More than this? Medea gestured, looking around her, her palms turned upward. You mean this? What I've made of a life for you, all you kids so you don't have a worry? You dismissing it with a bundle of dreams? You can't see past your face what life's gonna look like. What's wrong with making life with Wash right here in Loudoun County, along with the rest of us? You looking for all the wrong things when what you need is right here where you started. Medea turned her back and mouthed, no, it's not. Don't you get it, Mama? She turned back and moved close, inches from her mother's breath. I want out of Loudoun County. I don't want to be, she hesitated, poor? Her mother finished her sentence, the words stricken on her face. You don't want to be poor. She paused for a moment, glaring. Well, who does? Mama, no disrespect, Medea said, shaking her head. My life's not here. I don't see it. It'd be like digging my own grave and every dream I've ever had strangled at the root. Her mother said, throwing her head back. You kids will be the death of me yet. Go and get your work done. We'll tend to this later. You tell your pa you want to leave and trust he'll have something to say. If I were you, I'd keep this conversation to myself. The only thing you need to worry over is when I plan to speak with him about this mess. Medea bit down on her lip. Trust, she would keep it to herself. She'd be all kinds of foolish to let anyone know how deep her need to leave arrested any thought of staying. Every moment spent with her folks and her sisters tugged at her heart, knowing she so badly wanted to go, she could taste the threat of it. Leaving Loudoun County to raise kids and make a home in a different place meant leaving them. The thought of saying goodbye without them knowing drew a wall around her heart and held its own despair. Her mother stormed up the steps, the screen door snapped closed behind her, then returned momentarily to yell, Miss Lindy's expecting you. Why? So she can pay me a nickel? Medea yelled back, then scooped the remaining pair of pants out of the basket and flung them across the line. You best butter the bread you got, not the one you think you need, her mama said. The screen door slammed like a screech piercing the air. Moments later, her mother returned to find Medea sitting on the steps, long in thought, the basket empty, along with any will to get up and tend to her chores. She sat down beside her in silence, their knees and shoulders touching. I know what longing for something looks like, Mama said softly. I see it in the way you stare beyond the pasture, in the way you walk out of here every day, and I'm left to wonder if you'll come back. You're like Big Mama, always had a thirst to leave this place. Once Papa Steve built her that house on the West Bank, her lust to leave drained right on out of her. She now speaks with muted joy. She planted it straight in that dirt, kneading and tending to her garden that just about feeds families up and down the way. I reckon that's why she's in her cups at dusk and how she'll die. Not one step closer to leaving this place, at least not upright and breathing. Mama sighed. A little hooch goes a long way, Medea said, and the tension between them broke with gentle laughter. Some of us accept our fate. Others search until they find it somewhere out there, Mama said, pointing out to nowhere in particular. But girl, for us, it's no kind of easy. Here's what you know. Out there is the unknown, and in some parts, the unknowable. Out of all of yous, I knew you'd be the restless one. Like this place ain't big enough to keep you. We'll figure something out. You hear? She said, patting Medea's knees. Medea looked at her mama's worn and wrinkled hands and saw her full heart in those hands that loved her and looked after her day after solid day, whose fingers cooked up a storm of a meal of beef stew and corn fritters, tea cakes and crackling bread, especially on Sunday afternoons. Those same hands kneaded away all words from each of her daughters, whom she sat between her achy knees plaiting, and when they were old enough, pressing 5 heads of hair every other Saturday morning, preparing them for church. Hands that saw years of rough strife, who smoothed every bruise there was to be had, but could in no way heal the drive to leave the nestled in the bone of Medea's want. Medea placed her own hand above her mother's and patted it. Yes, we will, Mama. I will. Now let me head on down to this wench before you now let me head on down to this wench before you have to yank my tail off of her. Because you know she'll be no kinds of happy with me showing up a quarter past the time she's expecting me. Tell her I kept you a while longer hanging laundry. I'm gonna tell her I didn't want to wash her funky clothes, Medea said, then laughed, getting up to head out. Her mother reached for her hand. The soft pillow of skin met hers and sent a wave of delight through Medea. Her mama's touch was everything. The moment she felt it, tears sprung to her eyes. She turned away quickly, knowing, burrowed in the depths of her heart, she was going to miss her mama. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Carla. I just have to say, I know several of you personally, but I'm so pleased, Carla, that you finally had something for me. I've been begging you to submit for years. Jane, we have a small substitution here in our lineup, and Jane is going to introduce Anna, and Robert has very kindly and gallantly agreed to read last for us.
Okay, I'm actually filling in for Allison on this, but since we both work together, shouldn't be too big of a problem. Anna V.Q. Ross's most recent book, Flutter Kick by Red Hen Press, won the Benjamin Saltman Poetry Award. It was fantastic. I just read it, wherever you are, Anna. Her previous books include If a Storm, winner of the Robert, Dana, and Hinga Prize for Poetry, Figurine by Bull City Press, and Hawk Weather, winner of the Jean Pedrick Chapbook Award from the New England Poetry Society. She's a Fulbright Scholar, a Mass Cultural Council Fellow, and poetry editor for Salamander, and her work appears in the Kenyon Review, Harvard Review, the Missouri Review, The Nation, and elsewhere. She teaches at Tufts University and through the Emerson Prison Initiative. Anna lives with her family in Dorchester, where she runs the poetry and music series Unearthed Song and Poetry and raises chickens. The poems that Anna is going to read today were just mind-blowing. We loved the headlong rush into, it seems, everything. The poems are part of a series, I understand, that all start with the same 2 opening lines, and then they just fly off the page. Somehow she maneuvers us through prison yards, through the pandemic, through desperation, suicide attempts, trains, Twitter. It's this headlong journey into the gritty and the real in its kind of unexpected and surprising ways. And Anna, take us on a journey.
Thank you so much for saying all of that, Jane, and thank you for reading my book. That's the biggest honor any poet can ask for, to be read. I just want to apologize in advance. I'm zooming in from a museum, and my internet is a little bit unstable, so I hope I'm not freezing up on you all and that you can hear me. And somebody give me a heads up if things are going awry. I'll read the 2 poems that Jane and Allison kindly accepted. And as Jane said, they are part of a longer series. So you'll hear the same first title and first line of both of them, and the same final word, actually. All my poems used to end in sky, but now they end in sleep. Each day blurring post-equinox toward the longest night. The pandemic gave me glasses, is what I tell people and myself, all that Zoom. But really, I'm just old. All the ads on my feed for overpriced sweaters, high hyaluronic acid, and orthopedic ankle booties. Readers. I try to wear them the way the woman in the optometrist office demonstrated, perched halfway up the nasal bone so I can look down through them at my phone, student essays on the woman question, or my pores outlandishly clear in the mirror. Then raise my eyes to peer a sexy librarian in an 80s hairband video style over the frames at anything more distant. But I fear this will give me more forehead wrinkles and I'll have to click the links to the best skin, abs, neck, ass I've had in years. I'm allowed to wear my glasses when I go in to teach my class at the men's prison. A wedding band, the only other ornament permitted. Wouldn't want to give the guys the wrong idea as we discuss chattel slavery, market capitalism, and Olive Schreiner's theories of the sexuo-economic relation and the parasitic wife. My students all wear jeans or sweats and white t-shirts, all of us doing our best to be drab. Midway through the semester, a student brings in the black lab puppy he's training to be a service dog for deaf, blind, or autistic kids. He shows me how she can already sit, stay, raise a paw, and lead me away from danger. Tells me the best part is when he gets to meet the families who take the dogs, and the parents thank him for saving their marriages, letting their kids go to school, have friends. Imagine I could do all that, he says. I hand him back his midterm paper on Phyllis Wheatley and a poem he wrote about a man being watched by a department store clerk while he tries to pick a Christmas present for his wife, some earrings, maybe a nice printed scarf. I forgot my glasses today, but it's okay. My prescription's not that strong, so I can still see the Blue Lives Matter pattern on the friendly guard's face skater after class as he leads me back through 5 steel doors, past J block, L block, C block, the no man's land beneath the tower's gaze, then 2 sets of barred gates on pneumatic tracks to the 12-foot hallway with a 6-inch slit in the ceiling. For what purpose, I don't ask. And then into the trap, where a second guard searches my pockets and my bag for what they never say. Then 1 more door to the lobby, where I turn in my visitor's pass to a 3rd guard behind reinforced glass, who hands me back my license via a stainless steel drawer before releasing me to the parking lot and the highway's blank exam. I'll try and fail and try again to read the whole drive home, where I'll set my glasses down beside my bed before I go to sleep. All my poems used to end in sky, but now they end in sleep, a kind of tumbling toward the inevitable, or maybe that's what I want to believe, like the anonymous woman on the burning Orange Line train last week who jumped from the smoking window of the first car and then 30 feet off the Mystic River Bridge where the train had stopped. I think I'm safer here, she told her would-be rescuers in the Coast Guard boat before she swam to shore and disappeared. Boston's new hero, crowed the headlines the next day, and maybe that's just where we're at right now, America. A woman uncoupling herself from burning steel to dive into a brackish current famed for absorbing heavy metals, petrochemicals, and other bodies, then swimming away without leaving her name. In the video posted on Twitter, her head is a small dark blot, almost obscured by halos of ripples as the camera pans from too far away to find her face. Boston strong. Probably she was already late for work, people joked in the thread. But maybe she was on her way home from the overnight shift, I thought, but didn't say. A job she fell into years ago, never meaning to stay until the kids came along and she couldn't afford to pay both rent and a sitter. Now she relies on the jerk and clatter of the orange line to lull her back each morning over the bridge towards bed. I was very scared for all of us, she said, before hanging up on the one reporter who tracked her down. I imagined her turning over and pulling up the sheet, erasing herself back to sleep. Thank you all.
Okay, I am continuing on to the next introduction, which is Joshua Nguyen. Joshua is the author of Come Clean, University of Wisconsin Press, the winner of the 2021 Felix Pollock Prize in Poetry, the 2021 Writers League of Texas Discovery Award, and the 2022 Mississippi Institute of Arts and Letters Poetry Award. He is also the author of the chapbooks American, I'm going to not be able to pronounce this, Look But, correct me, Joshua? Yeah, I did okay, for my mother, Bull City Press, 2021, and Hidden Labor and the Naked Body, Sundress Publications, 2023. He received his MFA PhD from the University of Mississippi and currently teaches creative writing at Tufts University. And we were so happy to get his work. Couple of sentences on why this jumped out at us. I think for this theme, we saw a lot of poems about the effect of money on family, friends, relationships, lots of personal stories about lack or luck, class consciousness, obsessions, or simply the need to fit in. What stood out about Joshua's poem was its depiction of a larger picture, how culture and identity are impacted by history, trade, colonization, and economic forces way beyond any individual's control. So take us into the larger picture, Joshua.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me. My poem and issue is pretty short, so I think I'll read a second poem first, which still talks about the kind of larger, implications of money, and then I'll read the poem in the issue. It's pretty short. This first poem is something that's been annoying me, and before I read, I want to make sure that Anna knows I'm not talking about Anna, because I'm talking. The poem is gonna be like, talking about someone stealing something in my English department. I'm not talking about you, Anna. I love you. You're not the directee of this poem.
Wait, Joshua, you need to say that you're in the same English department. Otherwise, they're going to say.
We're in the same English department. I just want to say I'm not targeting Anna in this poem. This is just to say I am done labeling my oat milk in the faculty lounge. Instead, I will purchase a pink piggy bank for people to pay me pennies or nickels, whatever dimes they feel is needed for me to feed their bellies with oat milk, oat creamer, oatmeals for their shy mouths that won't introduce themselves to me in the hallways or at the faculty meetings. Maybe yes, maybe a printed QR code under a printed picture of my face from a year ago, smiling with chipped teeth with no dental insurance for 6 years. Who has time for office petty theft? Which professors have no guilt for the taking of my plums, my sushi, my goddamn leftover bagel bites? Is this a Northern thing, a Boston thing, a race thing? Faulkner or Lehman or Trethaway or Nanziku Matado wouldn't steal my milk, but I bet O'Hara and WCW would. I am a part-time lecturer, not a full-time professor of gluten-free blueberry pastries. Y'all, those aren't even for me. They're for my love who is smarter than me, hotter than me, and whose tummy wails at the sight of me chumming down $3 slices of za at the train tracks off of Forest Hills, because I am always hungry and I'm always searching for the cold plums I left in the refrigerator door, so sweet and so mine. And the second poem, yeah, shout out to those who get their oat milk stolen from time to time. I feel for y'all. I thank y'all for having me. This is the second poem I'll read. And it's the poem that is in the issue. I'm really thankful that y'all took it. Anna, you just logged back on. I read a poem that was about the English department, someone stealing my oat milk. I made sure that it wasn't you. I made sure that like, you weren't the one taking my oat milk. So you're safe.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I got kicked out.
This is after one of my favorite pastimes. It's boba or bubble tea. It's a very Asian American thing, and the creation of it, goes across a lot of different countries and colonizing and exports and everything. So this is called 18th century British imperialism. Asia created in one shaker cup boba, the most Asian American thing known to Asian kids with Ducatis, or Asian kids with book smarts, or Asian kids into Jane Austen, or Asian kids who go to therapy, or Asian kids who say slurs. In one wave of a hand, explorers left land and found Lewis, who found the leaves, who found the teacup that resides next to a statue of the queen under a monarch of milk, assam, and sugar. All hail the next hip trend, the grass jelly viscosity of sweet bystander. I love boba in the way banh mi cuts my mouth with each roof bite. Add butter, add blood, add pepper. Be smoke stuck between your teeth like French kissing a wreath made of your favorite colonizers. Thank y'all.
All right, thank you so much. I have to just say that I didn't write anything in the comments for you all because I've been herding cats here on Zoom. But I am so stunned and amazed and delighted by your work. It's all fabulous, and I'm so happy you're all here. I want to introduce Jeannine Ouellette, and each issue we have an interview. Normally, we often have things in lieu of an interview, but in theory, we have an interview in each issue. So this time, in lieu of an interview, we invited Jeannine Ouellette for an essay. Now, we weren't sure what she was going to give us, but I had been reeling from her memoir, The Part That Burns, and I found myself in this weird position of describing it to friends as strangely uplifting and joyful, even though it deals with the sexual abuse of a child, and it deals with poverty, it deals with mental illness, it deals with a lot of very difficult things. But Jeannine always has such strength of character, such an interesting way of looking at the world, and such a power that we kind of wanted to talk to her about the economics that underlie this memoir. And she came to us with actually something, I guess you'll tell us about it, Jeannine, so I won't get into it very deeply, but Jeannine's essay is now our featured in lieu of an interview essay. And here's her bio. The Part That Burns was a 2021 Kirkus Best 100 Indie Book and finalist for the Next Generation Indie Book Award. So it was a best indie book, and it was a finalist for the Next Generation Indie Book Award. Her work appears widely in literary journals, including Narrative, Masters Review, NAR, Calyx, and other journals, as well as on her Substack, Writing in the Dark. She teaches through the University of Minnesota, the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop, and Elephant Rock. So Jeannine, thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcella. Thank you for inviting me to contribute to the issue and for having me here. So your introduction helped me set this up a little bit. My essay in this issue is called The Cost, and it's about the cost of telling, especially things that other people don't want us to tell, like my memoir, The Part That Burns, which deals with recovery from the aftermath of childhood sexual abuse. And as you might guess, there was some fallout, but since my former stepfather was later convicted of felony childhood sexual abuse when his next stepdaughter told a school counselor what he was doing to her, there really were no big legal questions about that book. Then a year ago, I published a related essay in a prominent online journal, this time about my father, who was largely absent in my memoir because he's been largely absent in my life. That essay got pulled offline by the journal a few months after it appeared, and that's a complicated story that in some ways spans my whole life, and the cost in this issue tries to tell it as clearly as possible. Today, in my allotted time, I'll start with a Facebook message I received from a cousin before my book came out, and then I'll read the opening of the cost, which is too long to read in full. So thank you for being here, and especially thank you to Marcella and Karen for supporting this work, and to all of the editorial staff of the Ilanot Review. Here's the message that I received from my cousin about my book. I had heard there was sexual abuse, and that your mom was beating on you and Rachel, that's my sister. I'm so sorry you had to endure that and that nobody came to help. I remember asking my mom, if you knew, why didn't you do something? It seems so easy when you're a kid. And here's the opening of the essay. If something bad happens and only you know it, it could be your fault. Like when Pete slinks home whining and Mama gets down on her knees to look underneath him. Mama's nylons have a run. Sometimes she uses clear fingernail polish to fix runs, but it doesn't work for holes. That's a big bruise he's got there, Mama says to Mafia. Her pretty round bun is falling loose and strands of hair cover her face. I like to watch Mama in the bathroom when she twists her thick hair up, holding the bobby pins in her mouth so she can use two hands. Look at this, will you? Mama says now. I think this dog got hit. On TV, the person is guessing the price of onion soup. I don't like onions, but I watch anyway. Some kids will blurt things out just because they're scared, but not me. I can keep secrets. Like how on my way home from school, I saw Pete run across Albert Street, how the red car screeched, how Pete made that high, sharp sound. This passage from my memoir took decades to write. I wanted to convey how this little girl, the child I once was terrified to tell anyone, especially her parents, about witnessing her dog get hit by a car. But the scene always came out too maudlin, too whiny, until I took an expensive workshop with a well-known literary agent and learned a device called third-level emotion. Instead of directly expressing the narrator's fear, I had to trace that fear to a secondary emotion, which I identified as defiance, and finally to a third-level emotion, pride. Some kids will blurt things out just because they're scared, but not me. I can keep secrets. I was 3 or 4 when my stepfather, Mafia, first sexually molested me. He continued until he abandoned our family, like a thief in the night, my mother always said, when I was 10. Between 2016 and 17, the Alliance for Children, an advocacy organization in Texas, conducted 1,181 forensic interviews with children, and more than half had delayed reporting sexual abuse. The Alliance says, many different sexual abuse dynamics affect why a victim may wait or never disclose at all. One of those dynamics, in my experience, is that no one wants to hear it. When I first started querying The Part That Burns as an autobiographical novel, a dream agent replied instantly to request the first 100 pages. When she finished reading, she wrote, "There's a lot to admire about the prose here. The writing really seethes and shines on the page, yet I'll admit that I found it hard to read about sexual abuse, especially of such a young character, quite this early in a work." One forensic interviewer from the Alliance for Children says, "I've seen that people find it difficult to believe victims' statements of sexual abuse because so often they've waited months, years to report their experiences. This can be frustrating as delayed disclosures are very common." I wrote about my own delayed disclosure in The Part That Burns. I was living briefly with my father then. My mother, who'd raised me until age 11, had decided it was his turn, but my father was remarried with 2 preschool children of his own, and his wife, just 15 years older than me, wasn't thrilled about housing a preteen girl with social anxiety and a tendency to sneak into the off-limits to stepchildren upstairs bathroom for the good shampoo. Here's the scene in The Part That Burns where I tell a friend about being abused. 8th grade is exactly like 7th grade, but worse. The school year is almost over by the time my health teacher, Ms. Nick, shows us that movie about good touch and bad touch. The part about bad touch catches me off guard. I've never thought about things this way. But now, after this movie, I can't stop remembering Mafia. Ms. Nick says we're supposed to tell someone about bad touch, but I'm not sure. The Mafia stuff was a long time ago, all the way back in Wyoming and Duluth. I was little then. Does it even matter now? I'm pretty sure it doesn't, but for some reason I can't shake it out of my head. I guess that's why I finally tell Kim about the tickling game. "You," Kim says, "that's gross." "I know," I say, "but do you think it counts? Like for what Ms. Nick said after the movie?" Not long after this moment, the narrator does tell her mom, who tells the narrator's dad. The narrator remains mostly sure the abuse is not a big deal. At 13 going on 14, things that happened at 10 and younger seem forever ago. Maybe that's why the narrator so drastically underestimates the cost of telling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jeannine, it also strikes me how generous you are, giving us all the lesson at the beginning. That was really useful. Thank you. And I'm reading here, there's so many fans here in the reading. Thanks. Nadia, would you like to introduce Meg?
Yes, please. So Meg Pokrass is the author of 8 flash fiction collections, including Spinning to Mars, which won the Blue Light Book Award 2021, The Lost Detector, Bamboo Dark Press 2020, and her work was included in Best Small Fictions 2022 and the Wiggly Top 50, and has been anthologized in 3 Norton anthologies of flash fiction International New Micro, Exceptionally Short Fiction, and Flash Fiction America. She's also been published in hundreds of magazines, which she hasn't mentioned here, but I will. And she's the series co-editor of Best Microfiction. What I love about Meg Pokrass's work is how in such few words she can draw you into situations, into the intimacy of 2 people talking, and get to real deep, heartfelt emotions in such a short space, and experiences that linger on in one's imagination long after you've read the piece. So thank you, Meg. We can't hear you. Need to unmute. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nadia. And thanks so much for having me here, Marcella and Karen. I hope my internet holds out because something's very wrong with it. So I'll just get started and fingers crossed. I'm just reading the 2 very small micros that are in this issue. One is called Lake House. So I'll start with Lake House. He said the mole on my face reminded him of his grandmother's button collection, the oddly colored buttons I wanted to steal. He smiled. This made me happy. Since my husband had given up on his lover, I was finding reasons to like us again. While my mole was changing color and shape, I sometimes locked myself in the bathroom, trying to deflate my frizzy hair. In a Facebook photo, his former lover's bangs swept smoothly over an unlined forehead. You really remember your grandmother's buttons? With affection, although I never told her I felt it, he said. He looked around the room as if addressing her ghost. Since he'd been laid off from the hospital, he paced. It's amazing that you still remember those buttons, I said, poking at my mole, reddening it up. Don't mess with it before lunchtime, honey, he said. It's beautiful, just as it is. The growth is normal. I mean, just last week, it was the size of a pin. You're so hard on yourself, he said. I didn't say that it felt attached to bone. We had recently sold the lake house, a home we planned to grow old in. He said it needed cosmetic work, and where would we get the money? In bed, he pecked me on my colorful cheek and then rolled over like a tired old bear. I was used to our nighttime ritual and rolled over on my better side, like a timid animal, but I couldn't decide which kind of animal I was. Our lives aren't so terrible, he said. How much it comforted me that he kept a close eye on that side of my face, as if it held a secret about our future. And the next story is called Pigeons. The homeless guy looked like a gray puddle on the library steps. The pigeons had confused him, he said, which was why he fell. I helped him up from where he had fallen, his nose next to a plastic fork. He said he spent his days trying to figure the birds out. Would you know it? The way they flap until they no longer know where they're going. I told him my sister used to sit on the steps of the library and feed the pigeons too. She was very old and very gentle, and sometimes she fell, so I knew what he meant. I didn't know what to do for him. I never knew what to do for my sister. Is she gentle, he asked me. Kind of numb, I said, but way too gentle. Her life flew past her before she could catch it. I was used to offering kind people lacerated bits, saying and not saying the real stuff. The top of his head was bald, but he had a braid which came down near his butt. I wanted to tell him more about my sister and her last days in the shelter, but the birds were landing again, a dangerous looking family of them, very close to where we sat, pecking at the gunk on the steps. How can these birds survive on this crap, I thought, pulling him away from their shit, wondering if anyone had ever tugged on his heart like a church bell. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Hey, so I am continuing to fill in for Allison, which is not hard. I mean, rather, where is she? Okay, we're gonna wrap this up with Robert Laidler. Robert is the assistant professor of teaching in the Wayne State Department of English, the author of a poetic libretto, The Fallen Petals of Nameless Flowers, which premiered at Chamber Music Detroit in 2022. He earned his MFA in poetry from the University of Michigan, my alma mater, to say, where he is currently a Zale Fellow. His poems have won various awards and have been published in a number of places. Most recently, he was longlisted for Palette Poetry's Chapbook Contest, a finalist for Driftwood Press's Chapbook Contest, and a finalist for Missouri Review's Jeffrey E. Smith Editor's Prize. He enjoys listening to music, playing music, eating while listening to music, but not playing music while eating. That's not surprising to me because his poems are extremely musical. The two poems that we chose for this publication are part of a larger manuscript in progress. What we were struck by in these poems is the speaker's sometimes almost child voice of not knowing, not understanding, trying to navigate the unspoken costs that come snaking out in society in a moment of crisis. In this case, in these two poems, we're just circling around funerals and death and what needs to be, in a sense, paid by the family, the friends, and the community who are left behind. Robert, love to hear you.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction and for having me in this amazing magazine. I'm so honored. Everyone's work is literally blowing me away. I'm like nervous twitching under this table. So I'm gonna rewatched this so many times, and I'm so honored to be amongst all of you. I'm going to read these 2 poems and be done. I'm really, again, honored. Allison Powell was one of my poetry instructors, so I'm sad that she's not here, but I'm also glad to be in a magazine in which she was an editor. The first poem is called City of Fellowship. It is based in Alabama, and I think Carla read something about Alabama. So my family is from the South. I live in Michigan, but my family is primarily from the South. So it's really about funerals and the monetization of funerals and things of that nature. So that is on par with the money thing. The first poem is City of Fellowship. We didn't know what kind of flower arrangements to get the family. Normally we get white carnations wrapped in whatever the color theme for the funeral was. Once we went to a funeral themed in burgundy. The preacher wore a burgundy tie. The family limousines were black. It was the longest funeral we had ever been to. The sun rose and set before they even closed the casket. The weeping was burgundy too. We didn't know if they would cremate him or put him out for people to see. We knew his children, but we didn't know if they knew us or that he was dead. We were a little excited, though, that they would get to ride in a limousine for the first time and see both sides of the street. We didn't know if he had life insurance, but we made sure to go door to door asking for donations for the family. We collected over $5,000. We took it to them hoping they'd be happy. We said a speech to them about community and love and Jesus and Good Samaritan, and suicide isn't an automatic ticket to hell. And we didn't know if they liked peach or apple pie, so we brought both. We felt good about ourselves after we said our speech. We didn't have a way with words, but we had a heart that knew what to say to people in bereavement. They looked at us and took the money. They didn't touch the pies. And I'm going to read the last poem, which is called Fellow Child. This was born from an Olipo. It had a lot more words in it before it got to this point, and I took out a bunch of words as a part of my Olipo. So it's in the voice of a child going to a funeral. Yes, long line up to box. I am more afraid of this than birds. I never felt a death that pulled, only push kind. My cousin wept uncontrollable at his grandpa's funeral. I got scared before concerned. Lord, forgive. Lord, take away. I washed hands in bathroom too long. I took both hands along my gray pants. Looked like I peed. I scared enough to. He hurt so bad. I hurt too. I reached hand toward him. He slapped away. Saw me laughing. Not because something funny, because something dead and something funny not supposed to happen. I not cry. Set in stone a fake mourning. Singer sings after getting paid. Organist plays, tells my brother, you can't be over here. My brother not even close. To death. Why you have to complicate relationship already on ice? My cousins say, Auntie don't even come around no more. Too many skeletons in her basement. Not about death no more. That too easy. This about what wrong with me. What come up? I can't feel nothing now. Between cry and crypt. No, I don't cry at funeral anymore. Funeral cry at me. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much. Your work gave me chills. I remember the first funeral I went to, I laughed at it because I didn't know what to do. And this felt so powerful and so true. Thank you. That was it for our reading tonight. There were so many fabulous pieces in this issue that we didn't read tonight. We had a very difficult decision of inviting the contributors. However, every day for this month, for the month of May, we're going to post a new video of a different contributor on Facebook, on our website. Do we still have Twitter, Karen? On Twitter, we still have it? No,
it's still crawling along until it dies.
All right, on whatever we have, and if you have any suggestions about what we should get next, let us know. We're going to be posting those, so you can continue to enjoy the virtual launch for the next month. And we will also be reading for our next issue in June and July, and our theme is parent, and it could be interpreted very broadly. Our poetry editor is Anne Fisher-Worth, and our microfiction editor will be a surprise. You'll find out when we do. Thank you so much for being with us. Again, I'm really grateful to have you all. It's an honor. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.